Hey guys, my name is Olisa. Thank you so much for dropping by. Be sure to subscribe for more great content. This video is one that I have literally been excited to post for over a month now because I've had my eye on this machine for a month. I finally decided to just give up on my white Benetton machine because it did eventually die a few months ago and I've just been like machineless and suffering. So when I saw this one on the market, I was so excited to snatch it up, but I have been away from Nairobi from the house for about a month. So when I got back in Nairobi, it's literally the first thing I bought. I am so excited. Right now I'm just showing you footage of me unboxing it because this whole video is going to be a voiceover. I don't have time to like sit down and shoot a video and still get it up in a reasonable amount of time. But anyway, I just wanted to like unbox it with you and sort of give you my first impressions of this machine. I'll try not to make this video too long because I know the complaint about like bloggers and vloggers is we go on way too many tangents when you're here for the review. So I'm just gonna get straight into the review. I'm gonna walk you through the different steps that I followed to set up this machine, and I'll talk about it a bit more in my laundry area room sort of makeover video, so that's its own video. This video will just focus on the machine and the different cycles that I tried out and how well they worked for me. So the first thing I'll mention is that I did get this machine from Jumia just because I knew that I can trust the return policy after my experience with the TV. So I knew that if it comes and it's like taking too much electricity or using too much water or it's not cleaning clothes effectively, I would be able to return it, no questions asked, get all of my money back, versus like buying from an individual shop. Because initially I'd seen it for $35,999 in an individual shop like in town, and they were willing to deliver. But then Jumia went on discount at $37,000, but then I'd already talked to the other lady, so I was like, I'll still buy it from her. And then she went out of stock, so I immediately bought it on Jumia because $36,000 and $37,000, very small difference to pay for the ability to get all of my money back versus like just a warranty in case there's anything wrong with the machine. So I've been on the fence about whether or not I'm going to keep it, but I am pretty happy with the result. My first wash went amazingly. Second wash was a bit disappointing, but I did learn some very specific lessons from it. So my third wash was a lot more successful. I will in the future post dedicated videos of the actual different cycles and like how I'm learning to use them. But so far so good. I'm definitely keeping the machine. Definitely very excited to finally be able to clean my curtains and my blankets and everything. That is why I got a 10 kg machine, because I really wanted something that could handle every single thing in my house. In the manual, it very clearly, very boldly says, do not wash carpets in this. So I'm not going to make the same mistake that I made with my semi-automatic. And my semi-automatic has served me really well all this time because it is a 9 kg machine, right? But I started having issues with it literally the day that I washed a carpet in it. So learn from my mistakes. Don't be the same type of idiot that I was, thinking that a tiny little carpet like 5x8, 5x7 shouldn't damage a machine. It actually will mess it up completely. I got this 10 kg for $37,000, and they had an offer, like free shipping offer on Jumia. So I checked recently and the price has gone up to 40. So initially the price was about 42, 43,000 on Jumia, but the lady who's selling them in town, she has a shop in town and she's selling them at 36,000, and that price hasn't changed. So you might want to go for her. I definitely do recommend this machine. So if you do get it, I don't think you'll have any reason to return it. So I don't think paying an extra 5,000 bob for the option to return it is worth it. But yeah, basically I bought this for 37,000, and I've seen that Mika had a discount on their 13 kg top load automatic machine for 49,000. So I was like, adding an extra like 12,000 shillings in order to get an extra 3 kgs is actually a really, really good deal. But that is taking me sort of way out of my comfort zone because already this isn't something that I'd like planned for. It's just that I was talking to my grandparents about how I wanted to fix my semi-automatic, and a new motor alone was costing 15,000 shillings. That doesn't include transportation, labor, all those other little things that could go wrong. So it might end up costing me like 20 something thousand. And they talked me into realizing that it's probably better to just buy a new machine and stop like struggling with this one, right? If you've been on this channel for any length of time, you know that literally the wind will blow and I'll take it as a sign from God telling me just shop. So that is how we've ended up with this machine. So I wasn't quite ready to like stretch myself further and like spend 50,000. So 13 kgs is still a bit of a dream. But one thing that I will say is that as much as I love a top load machine, the front loaders are definitely more water efficient, and apparently they clean better. I've never used one, so I don't know, but apparently they clean better. Though with this one, I found very specific settings on how to control the water usage. So moving forward, I wouldn't be feeling like I'm wasting so much water. All of that is demonstrated in the wash cycle part of this video. And then in another video, I'll show you how to recycle the machine water. Even though this one in the manual does say do not manually add water to the machine, and yet in the settings, it still has a provision for that. So all of that will be coming up on this channel as I explore more in depth into this machine. Today's video is just a first impressions to show you how everything is working, to show you how all of it comes together. And I'm so excited to actually be able to like use this. So I had my grandparents visiting while this machine was being delivered, and usually I ask them to bring a blanket just because I haven't done up my guest room, like I haven't gotten proper beddings and whatever for it. So they have this giant, super ridiculously thick, I believe it's 6x6, though I haven't measured it, just one of those really heavy blankets, right? But I did try to fit it in the 9 kg machine, and this is how it fits. So you can see the machine doesn't even close, definitely cannot handle it dry, so when it gets wet and heavier, definitely will not be able to handle it. I put it in the 10 kg machine, and the machine did close, but it went up above the lip of the drum, and I'm not really comfortable with having things be above the drum like that, because I feel like that is definitely a clear sign of overloading the machine. Whereas with the 9 kg one, like you couldn't really tell because the whole thing was a drum essentially. I hope that's making any sense. I definitely think the 13 kg machine is necessary if you have very heavy beddings, but even for that giant like 6x7 bed, I'm going to be getting light fleecy blankets that are very cozy but not very heavy. So I definitely have to steer away from getting very thick, very ridiculously heavy blankets. But I did wash my 5x6 blanket in it in the cycles that we're testing out here, and it worked perfectly. I am going to be washing all of my beddings basically, because I don't have like ridiculously thick ones. I have 2 duvets 5x6 that I put in at the same time, and they fill the machine perfectly. So yeah, this is definitely something worth getting. So for my first load, I really wanted to test it right off the bat, just so that I can get an answer on whether it cleans things properly or not, because it does claim to have like a high clean ratio, right? So my main focus for this wash was a white cloth that I had ended up having to use to wipe my mirrors, which were very dusty, and you can see it's pretty stained. So in this load I included little kitchen towels, but then I didn't want the drum to feel too empty, or I didn't want it to use so much electricity running the entire drum when there was so little inside. So I decided to throw in my bathrobe and see if it works. And then when I looked at it, it was actually kind of grimy on the neckline area, so it worked out perfectly. And as you can see, both of those things that I was really focused on, because I don't think you can clearly see the dirt on the other things in the video, so you won't really understand the level of clean that they got to, but every single thing I put in this first load got cleaned so perfectly. Even the collar, which I was expecting to have a bit of trouble because it's such a concentrated area and you can't really control what the machine cleans as it's running automatically. So I was really impressed by how it performed, and I feel like this performance is what made the next failure a bit easier to swallow, because then I understood that it can actually clean properly. Maybe I just challenged it a little bit too much, which makes sense because the next round of things I did was whites, and I was particularly focused on a red shirt that I have that I was like out and about with, and the neck got quite grimy again. So, and the neck has a white band around it, so I really wanted that to get clean, and still it hasn't actually gotten clean even after a third round. But I have figured out that with whites, you do have to be a lot more careful. Like there was a lot more soaking involved in cleaning the white shirts, and I know that I left it to soak because I wanted to see how long I can pause the machine for. So when it like loaded in the water and then I let it run a little bit, because even in the soaking process, it like sits still for a minute and then it rotates for a minute and then it sits still for a minute. So it's not like a bucket soaking process basically. So I wanted to pause the machine and see if I can sort of extend the soaking time. But I realized that when you pause the machine, it actually turns itself off automatically. So you can soak indefinitely, and then when you turn it back on, you have to reset the program, and then you can like continue with your soak and wash and whatever the process you want to do. Hopefully you're understanding from like the footage that I managed to get, because I did set up my camera to sort of record the actual washing process so you can get like an immersive experience of what it is, of what processes the machine actually follows. So yeah, on the second round, the mistake that I made was including a big blanket with little other things. So even when I was removing it after the spin, I found those little things tucked into the blanket. So there were points in the cycle that it wasn't actually getting washed at all, and yet my blanket came out pristine. And even with a little amount of Stay Soft that I used, well, it felt little to me. I felt like I should have added it, but then I wanted to see if it actually worked. I smell my blanket and it smells wonderful. It actually smells like the Stay Soft stuck, so that's pretty freaking amazing. So that's the second round, and then the third round is where I did the jik soaking cycle, and that worked perfectly. I also tried the water cycle, but But again, I'll get into all of the cycles in a different video because I'm not fully conversant with them yet, although the water cycle just allows you to recycle water basically. So it doesn't allow you to spin out the water. When you choose an option, like the heavier or jeans options are the ones that give you the water cycle possibility, then it eliminates the spinning possibility. And that's because the water is retained in the tub, so you can actually take out the wet clothes and put in more dirty clothes to be cleaned with the same water. So the way I've noticed it working is that it sucks in water, does a soak and wash cycle, and then it removes the dirty water, sucks in water for rinsing, rinses the clothes, and then sits in it. So then you come in and take out your wet clothes and put in more clothes to be cleaned in the relatively cleaner rinsing water. I hope that makes sense. So I know I'm talking quite a bit in this video, but again, I will do the individual functions in a separate video. So I'm hoping you're getting like a full-on understanding of my experience with this machine, because I've just been playing with it basically non-stop for a couple of days to bring you this video. So I'm really hoping this is all very helpful. My head pillowcases had gotten caught in the blanket in the second cycle that I did. So they did need to go in for a third cycle, and I actually ended up taking like a bit of a risk, but I feel like it paid off somewhat because when I soaked them in jik, I soaked them in like the white jik, so I only put white clothes in it, right? But then when I was coming back to turn on the machine after the soaking process, I decided to throw in the red shirt that has a white collar, as well as my gray bed pillowcases, and I feel like it worked perfectly. Nothing was damaged, like there wasn't any color dripping or anything like that. Like even the whites came out pristine, and I mean, it all worked out. That's why I'm saying it's a bit of trial and error, so I'm not like gonna give you advice on how to use this machine, but basically I definitely think it's worth spending the money to buy it. I definitely think it's a purchase that you will not regret, because 10 kgs is kind of everything. I feel like 10 kgs can wash any size of curtains. Beddings can probably take a full bed's bedding, so like all the sheets, all the pillowcases, the blanket, and the duvet. At the same time, what I've learned is that you should not wash big things and small things together, because the big things will take over and get the better of the cycle. Then the little things will kind of be neglected. So my pillowcases were like grimy because of the castor oil that I put in my hair and just all of the oils and whatever. So I have one side for sleeping on the back of my head and one side for sleeping on my face, basically. When I put them in with a blanket, they did get clean, but they were not as clean as I wanted them to be. Like they were mostly clean, but could use another round of cleaning. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, when I put them in like with the little things, so the little things going together, then they definitely got super clean. Like now I'm perfectly happy putting them back on the bed, but initially I felt like they were still a bit oily-ish, right? So yeah, those are the lessons that I have learned playing with this machine so far. I do think it's worth the purchase. I definitely think it's such a good investment for the home, because like now I'm running my machine and I'm hearing people hand washing, and I'm like wishing I was friends with my neighbors. I would just tell them all to come and like do their laundry here, basically. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth the investment. I still love a good top load, even though they do take up a lot more water. What I love about this particular machine is that it actually allows you to regulate the amount of water. So in the first cycle, I didn't know that, but I hadn't put so many clothes, so it didn't like go to the maximum level of water intake for the rinsing. But for the second load, I did put in a specific amount of water, but then I noticed that when it drained the water and brought in water for rinsing, it brought in more than the amount that I had wanted. So the third round that I did, I actually monitored it, and it went up to the maximum amount of water, but then I manually reset it to go back down. And even during the cycle, you can actually play around with that. So you do have to go through all the steps. So like it went up to 8 and I wanted it at around 4. So I had to like bring it back down to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And you do have to go through all of that. Like there's no way to like reverse it, but it's still definitely worth it being able to control that aspect. So I like that it is an automatic machine, but I definitely do still get options, right? And also because it doesn't lock, it's easy for me to just pause a cycle and like add things to it. But it says even in the manual that if you open the lid mid-cycle and the machine doesn't stop, that means it is faulty. So as a security measure, they don't want your hands inside it while it's spinning, just to be safe. So I really appreciate that. And another note that I will make is that there is a 13 kg semi-automatic Hisense machine that I initially had my eye on, because it's 13 kg washing and I think about 6 or 7 kg drying. And initially I was going to go for this, but I had always told myself that when I'm upgrading from the Binatone, from this 9 kg, I'm going to upgrade to an automatic and not just like another semi-automatic. And also because it's 13 kg, it would fit like something really heavy like that blanket. It would fit it to wash it, but I would still have to carry the soaked thing and like hang it up, right? Because it can't fit in the spinner, which is only 7 kgs, which is kind of ridiculous. So it is a very limiting thing. If you're able, because the 13 kg semi-automatic is 28,000. This Nexus automatic 10 kg machine is 37,000. I feel like that 10,000 shilling difference, it's not just for the 1 kg, it is also for the spinning effect, because once you can wash something that's 10 kgs heavy but you can't spin it, it does still give you like a huge inconvenience, because you're basically lifting very, very heavy things onto yourself to try to put them on the line, and it's just, it's not the vibe, you know, like it's not the life I want to be living. So yeah, I think the fact that it can wash and spin, so basically I'm taking out a dry blanket and being able to hang it up, is what makes a whole difference for me. So that was the upgrade I wanted. This automatic machine does have a soaking function, so still works really well, can be manually added to with the water situation, so you can actually regulate how much water it takes, and it seems to only take about 1 unit per cycle, which includes soaking, washing, rinsing, and spinning. So that's a pretty good deal in my opinion. And yeah, I 100% recommend the Nexus machine. I feel like it's a pleasant surprise in the sea of machines that are available, especially at this price range. 37,000 cannot be beat. So if you're gonna get it from the person that I'll recommend in the CBD, again, I didn't get mine from her, but she seems really genuine and she seems really nice, so definitely gonna have her contacts down below. That is 36,000 shillings. For some reason, it's very inflated on Jumia, so if you're willing to pay 42,000 shillings for the exact same thing, go for it. But yeah, I think getting it at a good price is definitely gonna make this worthwhile. I think I will also link down below the Mika machine that I was looking at. That's 13 kgs in case you want to spend more the 49,000 shilling range, because if you're already spending 42,000, might as well spend 49, you know, but like I was spending 37, so kind of a bigger jump there. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this machine. I feel like I could go on and on because I'm genuinely really, really impressed. I'm really happy with this upgrade. Definitely think like an affordable automatic machine is the way to go versus the semi-automatic, especially if you're coming from a semi-automatic. At some point you'll feel the need to upgrade. This is a really worthwhile upgrade investment that's not like 70,000 shillings for 7 kgs. So that's my main problem with front loads, is that the 10 kg that I've seen in the market is 108,000 and I got a 10 kg for 37,000. Like it's kind of a ridiculous difference, you know, even for a little bit of water usage. Like that 60,000 difference, it's so much more water than I could ever use more in this machine than in a front load, so it just isn't worth it for me. But yeah, you have to do your own calculations and then decide from there. But I do think this particular top load is worth the investment. So I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you in my next video.